pledge led by Supervisor Thomas.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Roll call.
Mr. Conover?
Here.
Mr. Monroe? Here. Mr. Gerard? Mr. McDevitt?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Brock?
Here.
Mr. Kenny?
Here.
Mrs. Frazier? Here. Mr. Simpson?
Here.
Mr. Vanslow? Mr. Dickinson? Mr. Merlino?
Here.
Mr. Strauss?
Here.
Ms. Siebert? Mr. Sokol?
Here.
Mr. Beatty?
Here.
Mr. Westcott?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Ms. Wood? Here. Chairman Garrity?
Here. Okay, next item of business, I will turn the meeting over to Budget Officer Thomas, and he will give you the good news. Frank?
Good morning. Today I present to the Board of Supervisors the tentative 2016 Warren County budget. I hope the process this year has been more informative for the board members, having each department review their budgets with their respective committees. Thank you to Chairman Garrity for the opportunity to serve as the county's budget officer. Thank you to the budget team, Administrator Paul Dusick, Assistant Administrator Joanne McKinstry, and Deputy Treasurer Rob Lynch. Your help, guidance, and work are invaluable in preparing the budget and the multi-year plan, which gives all of us a view of how our actions in 2016 will affect the years ahead. It is a useful tool in planning for the future, identifying issues, and mitigating those issues before they develop into larger problems. Once again, our department heads have worked diligently in preparing their budgets for 2016. They are aware of the expectations to additional costs, but they also come with cost reductions and improvements in the county's operations. We have very experienced and talented individuals, often performing difficult jobs. I appreciate and thank each one for the knowledge they bring to the budget process each year. I appreciate the discussions with the Budget Committee at our recent meetings, and should I remain as Budget Officer in 2016, will heed the suggestions of meeting more frequently throughout the year to explore opportunities for additional revenues, cutting expenses, planning, and determining future needs and how to achieve them. Every budget always has positives and negatives, influencing the outcome. This one is no exception. On the positive side is a decrease in the New York State retirement costs by 10%, or $667,000. A welcome decrease after many years of very high contribution rates. A $308,000, or 2.7% decrease in health insurance premiums. very unusual in today's health insurance market, and I credit to Warren County's management of healthcare costs over the past several years. By being self-insured with prescription drugs, experience rated, and the accumulation of a reserve fund, stabilization of ever-increasing cost has been accomplished. The anticipated increases going forward are expected to be at 4% each year, instead of the 10 to 15% increases, which unfortunately have become normal. On the negative side is the underperformance of sales tax revenue. Falling short of the budgeted amount for 2014 and the sharp decline at the end of the third quarter of this year gave pause, and a recalculation going forward became necessary. Starting with the 2014 actual amount of $49,404,038, multiplied by 0.6% to a projected 2015 total of $49,700,462, then this is multiplied by 1% for a 2016 budgeted amount of $50,197,467. This is a decrease of $1.2 million in revenue if we had just increased the 2015 budgeted amount by 1.5% as anticipated. Doing this will bring the numbers closer to reality, and given our experience over the past 2 years, is the right thing to do. This tentative budget has a proposed levy of $41,781,451, which is an increase of 1.51%, or $607,659. The use of general fund surplus has decreased by $1.7 million to $495,000. While at first glance, this is a good thing, it is somewhat misleading. Due to the sale of Westmount and the lagging intergovernmental transfer, or IGT, payments anticipated in 2016, which are now included in the general fund of the budget. Budgeted is a 2.5% pay increase for all non-union employees, in conjunction with 14 salary adjustments, less than half the number of the adjustments in 2015. Overall, personnel requests have decreased by 293,000, with new versus deleted positions and other adjustments, and as a result, in many cases, of efficient and creative thinking by our department heads. Funded in this proposed budget is an additional $300,000 for road paving, for a total, with capital highway improvement funds, of $2.3 million. The SPCA is funded at $80,000, up from $8,000 in 2015. $62,000 for the completion of the fire alarm system in this building. $100,000 to replace the boilers in this building, and funds to pay bonding costs for the courts. The Southern Adirondack Library System with funding was increased by $10,000 from $35,000 to $45,000. And cooperative extension budget is increased by $40,600 to fund 2 part-time educators, one for the nutrition program and the second for logger training and certification program. The invasive species program for Lake George was reduced by $50,000 and an additional $44,000 added and placed in a contingent account, should the board decide to go forward with the NSTEM project at SUNY Adirondack. At one recent budget committee meeting, the airport became a topic of discussion, and I found it to be very productive, that different models of operation were mentioned. While there wasn't any agreement, it was referred to the Facilities Committee for further review. Over the past 3 budgets, the operating expenditures at the airport have been reduced by approximately $153,000, and the revenue is budgeted at $143,579 for 2016, which results in a net operating expense of $624,680. Progress. The communication improvements for our police and first responders, necessitated by the narrow banding of the frequencies used, is not funded in this budget. It would be my suggestion that, much like we did with the roads in 2014, and like the $600,000 appropriated this year, we wait until the final results of the 2015 budget in April 2016, and if appropriate, the board allocate additional funds to keep these improvements moving forward. And the last item I would like to mention, I asked the assistant administrator for a number of what all increases in pay for everyone employed by the county was. That amount is $996,000 to the 2016 budget. This does include changes made year to date in 2015 by the board for filling vacancies, for filling vacant positions, reclassifications, etc. Everyone desires a pay increase, and rightly so. But as requests come before us throughout the year, we should take a second or even a third look to consider if what is requested is needed. This proposed 2016 budget does not accomplish all things. Not many do. No one will like everything included in this budget, but I think it is a responsible budget that addresses some of the desires of the board, maintains, and improves the services to the Warren County taxpayers. And with that, we do have a PowerPoint to go into a little more detail on some items. The 2016 proposed budget not only continues Warren County's tradition of being below the tax cap, but provides for a tax levy percentage increase that is equal to last year. The proposed $148 million budget increases the levy by 1.51%, well below the increase allowed by the tax cap. The 2016 budget represents approximately $322,800 decrease in appropriations from 2015, when municipal sales tax distribution and Westmount are excluded. Amount to be raised by tax is $41,781,451. The proposed levy increase means the county tax rate will increase by approximately 1.4 cents to $3.95 per thousand. This means a homeowner with a $200,000 property would pay about $2.80 more per year. This limited budget increase is due to budgeting methodology that includes long-term planning and a culture where county departments are constantly looking for ways of cutting costs and increasing revenues through efficiency measures that still allow for quality services. This budget allows the county to make appropriations that are important to the board, such as increase county road funding by $300,000, Continued replacement plan for vehicles and increased funding for computer reserve. 2.5% raises for almost all officials and non-union employees, and wage adjustments for 14 non-union employees. Increased the vehicle reserve by $157,000. Increased the Southern Adirondack Library by $10,000. Provided funding for the Municipal Center boiler and fire alarms at $132,000. Created 11 full-time positions and 2 part-time positions. Deleted 16 full-time positions and 5 part-time positions. Decreased overtime by $114,680 countywide. And this is a comparison of budget revenue and appropriations. From 2013, 14, 15, and proposed. This is a graph of the full value tax base. As you can see, in 2012 we were considerably higher than where we are at in 2016. However, we have increased from 2015. The increase in the tax base helps everybody, lowers taxes for everybody. Significant revenues, the general fund. Sales tax collections, $50,200,000. State aid, $13,700,000. Federal aid, $11,200,000. Departmental income, $13 million, and other income, $18,100,000. Significant items driving revenue projections. Sales tax, decrease of $451,000. Jail services, a decrease of $200,000. Mortgage tax, increased budgeted amount of $50,000. Westmount Public Nursing Home, a decrease of $1,900,000. Public health, a decrease of $850,000. Mental health, an increase of $795,000. And social services, a decrease of $267,254. This is a graph of the total sales tax collections. You can see what the 2014 actual is, the estimate for 2015, and thereby the budgeted proposal for 2016. The mortgage tax, it was felt with the budget team and also with the county clerk that we could increase the mortgage tax slightly. It's not at levels that it has been in the past, but we felt that moving up a little was a good thing to do. Significant cost. Significant items driving increase or decrease in appropriations. The Westmount Public Nursing Home, $3,331,000, decrease. Sales tax distribution, $217,000. Wages, $996,000 increase. Health insurance, $308,000 decrease. Retirement, $667,000 decrease. Public health, a decrease of $832,000. Mental health, an increase of $721,000. Social services, a decrease of $236,000. And the county road, a total increase of $357,000. Health insurance cost. This is a graph showing our 2015 adopted and the 2016 proposed. As you can see, it's a decrease, and that's great. That's just unusual. Retirement, this is a good sign. I hope it continues. As everyone in here knows, the rates ballooned up, I believe, to near 21%. So now they're hopefully going back down, and hopefully they continue back down. Budget officer recommendations. Use of $1,686,658 in surplus fund balance includes general fund surplus $495,146, county road fund surplus $527,015, road machinery fund surplus $287,971, debt service surplus $300,000, and occupancy tax $76,526. Recommendations going forward. Continue to look for efficiencies that will cut costs while providing quality services. Continue to look for revenue to offset expenses and avoid tax increases. Continue to explore options for the property adjacent to Westmount that will provide a beneficial use and income source for Warren County. Explore the sale of county property adjacent to Route 9. Continue to analyze positions as they become vacant. And this here is the tax rates for each municipality. The equalized county tax rate is $3.95, 94.5. As you can see, they vary depending on the various assessments in each municipality. And lastly is the 2016 budget impacts on future financial condition of Warren County. And this is the multi-year financial plan. We reviewed that at yesterday's budget meeting. It's doesn't look as good as it did a couple weeks ago, but we have time to deal with the issues. Okay, that concludes my presentation. Are questions or discussion?
Frank,
Yes.
what we're voting on is we're voting to move the tentative budget to a public hearing.
Correct.
And then after that, changes can be made to the budget after the public hearing? Yes, no, maybe? Or
That's my understanding, yes.
can somebody clarify that? Can changes be made to the budget?
Yes,
This is tentative, just like the town process.
right, it's the same. The,
Changes can be made by any member of the board.
following the public hearing, yes.
Supervisor Westcott.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, so this budget will be the budget that will be presented at the public hearing, which is the next board meeting.
Correct.
There's no changes that could be done between now and then.
Correct.
Until after the public hearing, which could be done on the spot that day.
Correct.
That's correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want.
Supervisor McNiven.
I'd just like to make an observation if I can, and one of the things that has always bothered me as far as the finances has been the number of employees that we're adding to our jail. I chatted with Paul for a moment before this meeting, and that email that you sent out, Paul, I thought was very informative, but it looked tentatively that there would be initially an ongoing expense of approximately $770,000 annually, plus estimated overtime of $555,000. The thing that concerns me is the fact that these are financial items that never, ever go away. We can moan and groan about the courts, Siemens, the airport. The reality is those expenses will go away, ultimately. We're looking at a college that needs a new science building, dearly needs a new science building. The estimated construction bonding costs of that facility, I've heard banted around on a 20-year bond construction note, would be something on the order of $500,000 a year. It is estimated that our jail expense will be between approximately $1.3 million to start down this road. So the point again that I would make is that this trend in terms of employees never ends. It goes on forever. Fringe benefits, payroll. The opposite and the corollary to that is Westmount, where ultimately the reverse of that is true. So I can appreciate, the financial dilemma that we are faced. But if we look at national trends and we look at other states, whether it be Texas or Virginia or Maryland, they detected a trend probably 4 or 5 years ago. Crime is down nationally. It's very, very expensive to lock human beings up. If we're locking non-violent human beings up, we're making a mistake, again, because it's expensive. Again, the distinction and the difference between, again, the airport, the courts, and Siemens is those expenses ultimately go away. The payroll at the jail does not go away. And it seems to me we're going to struggle with a science building and trying to find a way to pay for our college's expenses, and we will grapple and struggle with that. So I just wanted to go on the public record and again, continue to express my concern. I wrote a letter to the governor, and I did the best that I could do in terms of trying to reverse this trend. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Chairman Garrity.
Yeah, what's the alternative, Peter, though? Did you get a response from the governor? Or?
I did. No, I did. I got a response. There is a corrections board. It's a 3-person board, which former sheriff from, I think, Buffalo that heads it up sent me a letter. It was basically a thank you, but no thank you. But the thing that maybe concerned me about his return letter was that you in Warren County requested that the state of New York come in and do a jail study. That was the wording in his letter to me. Now, it seems to me, if you're very rich and you got a very large checkbook, that's when you ask the state of New York to come in and do a study. I don't think that was the smartest of moves. I would not have requested that. I would have taken care of it internally and kind of dealt with the problem.
No, I agree with you. And if we incarcerate less people, you would think that we would get some relief. But it's just what I hear you saying is it's going the opposite. Well, it went the opposite way.
Well, it is, and I think in other states. Okay, and again, we live in a part of the world where
maybe we need to refer this to legislative to have them as a full board write a letter saying.
Yep.
Okay, we followed the rules that you came in and said that we needed to add 13 or 10 full-time because, that's what we're talking about.
No, you're right. You're right.
An unfunded mandate.
Yep.
For the size of the facility, correct?
No, absolutely correct.
And I hear you. And when your revenues are dropping, like they have been dropping, because maybe because they're fettering the inmates other places, maybe it's time that we go back to the Commissioner of Corrections and say, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
'cause I don't know what the average census is. Maybe you know, Evelyn, is the census steady or?
The census is fairly steady. The big effect is, sometimes we have a little fluctuation in the federal prisoners. That seems to be dropping. But overall, we hold pretty steady except in the summer. We tend to see a little bit of an upswing, and I think that's just relative to our tourist economy.
Maybe perhaps, Fred, we could look at it again.
It goes back to the unfunded.
It's an unfunded mandate.
That Mark worked on for years, and it's just a further illustration. It doesn't work. They have one level of government creating programs that we can't afford and sending the bill to us. It doesn't work.
And we just sat with Washington County.
You gotta take responsibility for the programs you create, which the state doesn't.
We sat with our friends in Washington County this morning and heard basically the same things from them. When they roll out the mandates in their budget, and you look at the things that were mandated, and then you have the column of unmandated, we seem to be in the same boat, just like the public defenders. That was raised this morning, because they were part of that lawsuit. So, I mean, maybe it's time that we push back a little bit harder.
No, I can appreciate that. It almost appears as if there is a little bit of a game being played when you essentially, having sat here as we all did and listened to that presentation, and graph after graph after graph, after a couple of minutes you get kind of bleary-eyed in terms of your understanding level of what they're trying to convince you of. But I guess the point is when we essentially have one of the most powerful unions in the state of New York, that being the correctional union, and teachers being a very strong union, strong political contributors to the entire political process, they have a vested interest in the answer to the problem, and that is their objective is to protect their union members to ensure that jobs don't go away.
Well, thank you.
Supervisor Kenny.
Yeah, I urge the board to contact the Corrections Commission and have them come back, because over the last 10 years, our prison population, is sunk to an all-time low, and our number of guards is sunk to an all-time high. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And who made the request for the commission to come in?
It is my understanding that our sheriff made that request.
Shame on.
Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, Supervisor, pardon me? Okay. I agree with Supervisor Kenny for the most part on that. Just simple mathematics. If you got the same or less prisoners, and we increase the amount of guards, the cost goes up significantly. And that's a collision course that none of us want to run into, and we are there now. And Supervisor McDevitt brings out some very valid points. And I didn't realize that we had requested scrutiny of our.
The letter that I received from Sheriff something or other, one sentence in the letter, basically, it was very respectfully to this sheriff, it was kind of a screw you letter. We've made a decision, but there was one sentence in there that indicated, that your sheriff had asked for the study to be done.
So, can I continue?
Yes, you can.
Going forward then, I'm just wondering if we have the capability of asking the Department of Corrections to look at our situation again on our staffing per prisoner ratio and see if there can be an adjustment going forward. Now, that may mean closing down a pod, that may mean, I don't know. But I think that that's something that we definitely should look into, because again, those costs, like Supervisor McDevitt said, are not going away, they're only increasing, and we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we have other key initiatives, i.e. the STEM building over at ACC. We just can't do everything. And so I think you make a very valid point. Thank you.
Supervisor Westcott.
Thank you. Just a few comments to both Supervisor McDevitt and Kenny's comments. One, if you could send that letter out to the rest of the supervisors, that'd be great.
I will. I'll get hold of it.
Thank you. And two, I'd like the sheriff at some point to come in and address this again. I thought he had addressed this the explanation for why this study was done, but I think it keeps coming up, and until he comes in and further clarifies this, it's gonna continue to be a topic of discussion, so I would ask that the sheriff come and address this. I like Mr. Kenny's idea of having them come back. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I would ask that, we even get Betty Little and Dan Steck involved to try and make that happen, because this is absurd. We have decreasing criminal populations in our jail and increasing staff that we have to pay for. So the situation is absurd. When we started that mandate relief effort, Fred, we did so piggybacking on the governor's mandate relief council that just evaporated and disappeared. And one time we submitted a no-brainer request. They turned it down, so we said, this is spinning our wheels. And then we decided we would address it in the Government Affairs Committee, which I think is the way to go now. And I'm more than happy for my remainder on the board to revisit that and see what we can do with this issue. I think Mr. Kenny's spot on to revisit it and have them come back if possible, because it's ludicrous.
Supervisor Brock?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible for us to send our prisoners to another jail? Is that legally possible?
My understanding of that is that we have requested that in the past, and partner with our partner that we team up with a lot, Washington County, to share our jail, cut expenses in this time of 2% tax caps and reducing the tax freeze, et cetera. But that's, from my understanding, it's not possible. So we could have an empty pod here that we could bring prisoners from Washington County and help fill up our pod and make better use of our correction officers. Maybe not use one in Washington County, but that's not allowed.
Yeah, I mean, if we're down and they're down, if we combine them, we save money.
Right.
That just makes sense.
We did have a meeting with Senator Little on that in 2008 or 9. A lot of the problems back then was the classification of the prisoners. And at the time, Sheriff York and Sheriff McClure were trying to work together to do exactly what you said, Tim. And they were stymied by the state law governing it, and they asked Senator Little to look at it. Now, I think there's been some change in the classification rules of prisoners.
Yeah.
It's my understanding, like Frank said, that even if you had nobody in the pod, it's the staffing of the jail proper, because there's only one person in that pod, you know that.
Right.
Just the one person sits there, and then the other staff is throughout the facility. So, you may gain one, but I don't know.
How is it that the federal government can bring in prisoners, but we can't between two counties?
Oh, you could. You could ship. It's a cost.
The
I think
cost-
they've done an analysis of shifting prisoners. You could probably, but I don't think you can, you're not gonna take 12 people off the ship if you empty a pod. I think that's right. Isn't that it, Frank?
Yeah, that sounds right.
What I can do is I can look into that in terms of finding that out so that information is available at the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Just, I do remember that I think some of the rules as it relates to the state legislature mandating counties to actually have jails are still on the books. And I think the boroughs of the city are not included, but essentially each county is mandated to have a county jail, which maybe it's time to consider changing that law in terms of sharing costs.
Right.
My recollection from the meetings that Kevin referred to with Senator Little was that a lot of the problem is on the classification issue. You have to separate adults from minors, and, by gender, and, gang members, not in the same opposite gangs, not the same.
Right.
And so that adds a lot to the cost. And so if you could move some of those categories, consolidate them in nearby jails, it probably saves the cost. But my recollection is the same thing. The rules.
Right. The sheriffs are willing to do it. It was the legislature.
Maybe there should be jails in each county for each group. You know what I mean? It's what I'm trying to say is Warren County has a jail for a certain group, another county has a jail for another certain group, and all the counties, pool. And if they have a person of that classification, they take them to that jail. That would make sense to me. Yes.
Is that gonna help the transportation costs though? 'Cause that was another place we had a lot of expenses transporting prisoners, and I wonder if we got into that, I think we should weigh that carefully because the transportation costs were pretty expensive as well.
Right. Supervisor Merlino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got different comments on the budget. I appreciate all your hard work and the team. To me, it's really a great budget. I'm a little disappointed that nothing was done with the relief to help some of the small towns. I'm still on the same kick as I've been for 2 years, and I guess I'll have to wait till next year on the deal with Glens Falls and Queensbury. I think that contract has to be renewed again with Glens Falls and Queensbury and keep the rest of the county out of it. I mean, we've already given $6 million in 12 years to Glens Falls, and you got 18 more years on that contract. You got to figure about at least another 10 million. So right there, you got 16 million that went over to another town or city from the county. Things like that. We as little town supervisors, I'm disappointed in some of my small little town supervisors also because I don't get the support I think I should help in this. But we all have the same bills as everybody else. We have to buy trucks, we have to pay health insurance, we have to pay wages. But we get very little of sales tax revenue, and I think something next year, I hope maybe we can get into, a couple of different things or try a couple of different things to help out the small towns. I mean, I'm not happy with the 94,000 I think we just put in this budget for the stem cell. I know a lot of them are for the college. I agree with education, but I think this is a program that's going to take 3 or 4 years to get going, and probably another 2 or 3 years by the time people graduate from this position. And I would love to see it held off for a couple of years because there's taxpayers in my town can't afford taxes. And and I know education is important in this country. I really do, but I would just like to see something maybe put off a couple of years before we get involved in another $5 or $8 or $10 million bond. But that's my speech. Thank you.
Supervisor
Just
McDevitt.
to my friend from Lake Luzerne, the city of Glens Falls and Warren County, they have a contract, legally binding, enforceable contract. This isn't just like making a resolution at a board meeting. It was an arm's length, valid, attorneys, county members, stamped, notarized. That's our system of government. The city of Glens Falls is not going to walk away from that, and it is an enforceable contract. So it's not like a resolution. So that's not going away.
Well, I disagree with you, my friend. It's a contract that was made at a time when a lot of people voted against it, but it passed. The same thing, a contract with Siemens or a contract with the jail. I mean, things can be changed. And I don't say get rid of the contract. I'm saying that should be negotiated with the town of Queensbury and Glens Falls. They could come up with the same contract. Leave the rest of us taxpayers out. On my portion of taxes that I pay and my town pays, shouldn't have to pay for an expense that's coming out of Queensbury, and I believe in that fully. Was it right then? Maybe. But is it right today? No. Thank you. I'm not going to debate it, but that's how it is. And the same with Civic Center. I'm the full supporter of the Civic Center. But I have the numbers here what the Civic Center got out of this county between sales tax revenue and bed tax revenue. It's quite a lot. And I'm hopefully this keeps going with the Civic Center with this new group. But we can't be putting in, all the towns are struggling with a lot of little things that have to be taken care of. And I know I'll never convince 5 supervisors from Glens Falls or 4 at-large supervisors from Queensbury. But, we'll never win the vote because of the way the structure of the vote is here. I mean, but I have to speak my piece just like you express yours.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Supervisor Westcott.
Mr. Chairman, been on the board 4 years. I think the toughest job that I've seen is being budget officer. I want to commend you for your effort. I also want to say thank you for, listening to the board members and doing what you could to increase spending on our roads. I think that is a step in the right direction. And the efforts at the airport to find efficiencies and savings is evident with the budget this year going in the right direction, as you said. So there's so much, that I can support in this budget, and, I'd like to, vote for it. The one area that I would ask that, the board consider taking a look at, is the raise to the county administrator. There were a group of us, 7 of us, who voted no confidence. And last year, we, gave the county administrator a 6% raise. We're asking for another 2.5%. I don't wanna use that as the one issue to vote against this budget, but I, would ask consideration of maybe segmenting that out and doing it separately as a roll call vote. And that way, I would, be able to tell you now I can vote for this budget if that's done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other, yes, Supervisor Kenny?
I move the proposed budget.
Is that my, job, or is that that's the chairman's job? If there's a,
No, you moved it? You don't need to be up there to do it, so. No. You made a motion to, and a second by Evelyn, to, move the tentative budget to hearing. We must do roll call.
Mr. Thomas?
yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mr. Conover?
Yeah.
Mr. Monroe? Mr. McDevitt?
Yes.
Mr. Towler?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mrs. Frazier?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Mr. Merlino?
Yes.
Mr. Strauss?
Yes.
Mr. Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott? I'm sorry, Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Westcott?
Yes.
Chairman Garrity?
Yes. Okay. Is there any other, anybody from the, audience, public, wish to comment on the budget? Any announcements? Free beer at Stony Creek Inn tonight?
Sure.
Motion to adjourn by Supervisor Frazier, second by Supervisor Simpson. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you.
You know,